Good evening and welcome to the Coal Hollow Fire Information Community Meeting. My name is Brenda Bowen. I'm the Information Officer with the Rocky Mountain Type 1 team. You'll see the agenda that we have up here tonight. The purpose of this meeting is to provide you an update on the current status of the fire, the status of the evacuations, and if you could hold all of your questions until the end, we will provide an opportunity to get those questions answered. In addition to that, you'll notice over on both sides of the room, we do have some maps posted. If you're a little hesitant to ask your question in front of the group, we will have people available to answer those questions at the maps afterwards. It's echoing for me. Is it echoing for you all? Not too bad? Okay, I can deal with it if you all can. Finally, before I turn it over to Brian, who is doing the official welcome, at the front of the stage here, across the front, we do have information cards. So this has all of the different places that you can get information about the Coal Hollow Fire, whether you want to call us on the phone, send us an email. If you're into Facebook, we have the Facebook link, INCIWeb also. So feel free to grab one of these cards from the front at the end before you leave. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Trick for the welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay. So as mentioned, I'm Brian Trick. I'm the Wasatch Front Area Manager for the Utah Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and taking time out of your evening to come and listen to what we have to talk about. Secondly, I'd like to thank the Nebo School District for letting us use this facility. Unfortunately, though, it is with a heavy heart and a somber tone that I need to address the loss of Matt Burchett, Draper Battalion Chief, who passed 2 days ago in California. His loss hits everyone in the fire community hard, as we consider ourselves one big family. It saddens the lives of Utahns as they struggle with the loss of a native son, and it heavies the load of Matt's closest friends and family who asked for privacy at this difficult time. But please know that our thoughts are of Matt and our prayers are for his family. Again, I'm Brian Trick, the Wasatch Front Area Manager. My area encompasses Utah County, which happens to be the origin of the Coal Hollow Fire. So since the Coal Hollow Fire began on August 4th, the state, myself, has been working very closely with our federal partners, the U.S. Forest Service, which includes both the Manti La Sal and the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forests, as well as the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. After initial fire growth on the 5th, and the fire exhibiting extreme fire behavior, a decision was made to order a Type 2 incident management team. This team came and did a fantastic job, but it soon became apparent to them that the conditions we were facing, they would not be able to contain the fire in the amount of time that they had left, so it was advised that we order a Type 1 team. The decision was made very quickly, and we have Dan Dallas here, the IC of the Rocky Mountain Type 1 Incident Management Team. The previous team, Tim Rohde's Great Basin Team 4, did an exceptional job of setting up this team. We'd like to thank him, and we've all been pleased with the work that both teams have done, and especially Dan Dallas's team currently. So tonight we want to give you an update and explain where all the smoke has been coming from and answer any questions you might have. But quickly, I'd like to thank specifically all the counties involved, their emergency managers, all the county's sheriff's departments, state highway patrol, all our cooperators who have been affected by the fire, and thank them for their cooperation and their diligence. This fire is a perfect example of eating an elephant one bite at a time. And we appreciate your patience and understanding as we work to contain it. So thank you.
And now we will have the Coal Hollow Fire History with Kyle Beagley, Sanpete District Ranger.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to come out tonight. So, as mentioned, my name is Kyle Beagley. I'm the District Ranger on the Sanpete District of the Manti La Sal National Forest. Just in general, that district runs from about Highway 6 south to about 10 miles north of I-70, kind of in that area, and it includes the west mountain there west of the Sanpete Valley as well. So August 4th, I got a call on a fire, which is not uncommon. This time of the year, we get a lot of calls that there are fires out there, and we respond to those. Our initial attack is generally very effective. This one was a little bit different in that by the time they could reach it, it had already grown to about 40 acres in size, and it was in very difficult terrain and very difficult, thick fuels. And when we say fuels, that's the type of vegetation that it's burning through. So it was in some decadent trees and burning very hot. It quickly ran to about 80 to 100 acres very quickly, and we automatically responded with a Type 3 local incident management team, and was able to get a hotshot crew called in fairly quickly to try going direct and get in control of this fire. Those first couple of days, we tried to establish an anchor point and then work from there on the fire, and that was just extremely difficult to do with the weather and the fields that it was burning in. It pushed our guys out 3 different times where they had to kind of evacuate their plan and head back and regroup and see how we were going to address it again. As Brian mentioned, August 5th, the decision came pretty quick that we needed more manpower, and so we made that decision to order a Type 2 team. The response was incredible. They were on a fire in western Nevada, and some of their crew were here that following day to shadow and transition with our operations folks that we had out there on the ground, so that when the rest of the team got here, they were ready to roll. They inherited a difficult situation because right in that time frame, August 5th, the Hilltop Fire started there in Sanpete County and was threatening a lot of homes in that area. So that Type 2 team came in and had both of these incidents to try and figure out how to manage. Priorities, resources were scarce, but they did an incredible job of assigning priorities where they needed to be on the ground. They quickly got in control of the Hilltop Fire and Coal Hollow Fire. Our values that we identified were primarily there along the Highway 6 corridor. We understand the commerce value that that corridor provides, the rail line that runs through there, and the many transmission lines that carry power through that area. That was our top priority area from day one. Like I mentioned before, the fire was very difficult to try and handle and get in control of, but I thought that Type 2 team came in and did some amazing work. It didn't take long with the Type 2 team, as stretched as we were to make that decision to ramp up to the Type 1 incident management team that we have here with us, the Rocky Mountain team, and they have been incredible. And I want to just let everyone know the response from these teams and the timeliness that they get out here and get rolling is very impressive. So right from the beginning, the Coal Hollow Fire has been looked at as priority for the forest, and whatever resources or time or anything needed to suppress this fire from the beginning has been our forest's top priority. After driving Highway 6 coming here today, I definitely would like to give a shout out to the hotshot crews for doing the work that they've done. I don't want to encourage everyone to go drive Highway 6 right now. Give it some time before you go up that way. But you'll notice where the fire did jump the highway there, it's an incredibly difficult terrain, and it's very impressive to me to know that those crews were able to catch that fire on that north side of the highway, which was top priority. If fire gets established north of the highway, that would be a kind of a game changer for trying to manage this incident. I would also like to thank all of you, the public, for your words of encouragement and support. I know the smoke has been terrible. My mother lives in Price, and I have some very good friends that live here in Spanish Fork, and those two areas have gotten the worst of the smoke. My apologies for that, but I do want to let you know how appreciative we are of your words of encouragement and all that the public has done for us through this, the last week and a half. We, together with all of you, are praying for some rain. That would be extremely helpful and appreciative. I also want to emphasize from day one, as a multi-jurisdictional event with many different landowners and agencies, that we have all been on the same page with our efforts in striving to suppress this fire. I also want to express appreciation to the cattle and sheep permittees that we have worked with out there on the ground. They've been incredible to work with, very approachable and very willing to do and work with us on where we need to move that livestock to keep them out of harm's way. That's been an incredible effort as well. I will be here after as well to answer any questions you might have, and just want to say we appreciate all the cooperation and coordination that's happened to this point. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Dan Dallas, our incident commander for this incident with the Rocky Mountain Type 1 Incident Management Team.
Sorry, Brenda. Had to do that. Tip that up. Good evening, folks. Thanks very much for taking part of your time and spending it with us. Really appreciate that. As Brenda said, I'm Dan Dallas. I'm the incident commander for Rocky Mountain Incident Management Team 1. And before we get to the status of the fire, which I know y'all want, I always take this opportunity to ask a couple of questions and just briefly explain some things. So everybody with a uniform with a badge or a patch on it, stand down. How many people are familiar with the incident command system? Quite a few hands. Good, good. Well, you see it all the time, but just most folks don't know about it. So I just wanted to mention it real quick. We talk about types and all that kind of stuff, and the whole thing's designed to fit the scale of the incident. And kind of the bottom line, so here I've been given a delegation of authority from the Uinta Wasatch Cache National Forest, the Manti La Sal National Forest, DNR, State of Utah, and who am I missing? Oh, BLM, Bureau of Land Management. But we also have a bunch of cooperators in here. Those are the people that I asked to stand down because they were going to raise their hand because they know all about the incident management or the incident command system. So my team, when we mobilize it, comes in with 56 people. And it's just pretty simple, but it's designed to be scalable, as I mentioned. The only thing that Type 1 means is we're the most we should be able to handle and have in the past, and I'm pretty proud of it. The most complex incidents kind of that might present themselves. So it's more or less a qualification, but it means almost nothing because 3 weeks ago as a task force leader. So we all kind of fit the bill. But anyway, bottom line with the incident management team, they come in with really 4 basic functions, 5 if you count me, but I try not to count me, the command function. But every Army marches on their stomach, so we have to have a logistic function that takes care of the people and the troops on the ground. Every Army won't march if you don't pay them, so we have a finance section, right? And then there's total chaos unless you have a plan, So there's a planning section, and then I'm about to introduce the next section. And then we have what we call command staff. Brenda's our information officer. If you sum up probably half to three-quarter of her job, that's called rumor control. And then we have a liaison function that we kind of wish was here right now, but he had a flat tire on his way here. So he's the one that interacts with all the other folks. And then the last one is what happens on the ground. That's called operations. And I think what I'll do now is just stop and introduce Jay Miller, one of my operations section chiefs, and he'll give you the current status of the fire, of the Coal Hollow fire.
All right, good evening. Jay Miller, Operations with the Rocky Mountain Type 1 team. I'm going to give you a status of the fire as it is right now. So Coal Holler fire, we broke this fire into 3 branches. On the north side, we got branch 3, which is the Highway 6 corridor. Within that branch, we got Division Mike. So within branches for Type 1 teams, you can scale with branches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you need. That all depends on the size of the fire. This particular fire, we have 3 branch directors out there with that piece of ground, and within that branch, there's a number of divisions from 1 to 6, roughly, is what we do with our divisions. But up here in branch 3, which is the Highway 6 corridor, we got Division Mike. They did catch the stuff on the north side. They mentioned that earlier. Crews are continuing to hold. They burnt this out below the power lines down here to the highway. They've held all this by the tracks in the corridor, and they're just continuing going direct here along the fire edge, working to the east. Down on this side, this is branch 2 on this side, and we got 3 divisions in there. Division Quebec is in here along the Starvation Road. Crews have held that road to date. There is a little bit of smoke, the smoke you guys seen today coming in here. Some aerial ignition along with hand ignition to try to get a little buffer. Last night we had a big downdraft from one of the thunderstorms that came in. Kind of pushed this to the north a little bit. Spotted over our dozer line right there, as you can see, but our night shift picked that up. So we're just trying to get a little buffer in here so we don't get another push to the north. Structure protection has been out here and the stuff out here at Soldier Summit and all the houses to the east and in the corridor here, prepping, putting sprinklers around the structures, doing structure assessment plans. So as we move on the south end of the fire here and jump up on top past the girls' camp, using engines, hand crews, dozers. We also have 8 helicopters supporting all those crews on the ground. But this all looks really good in Quebec into Romeo, doing a little bit of indirect line, which is just a little bit away from the fire edge to where it's a little more workable ground for the troops on the ground. Eventually we'll either burn this out or it'll come to it naturally to secure that line to get a little more depth. Working this around here to Division X, getting more resources, more and more. We're still number 1 in the Rocky Mountain or in the Great Basin for fires, so we're getting pretty good resources in, and I feel pretty good at a national PL5, which is the highest level for resources, and that's what the nation is right now. We're doing okay for resources. I feel very fortunate at what they're giving us to put this out for you guys. Come over here into branch 1, continuing indirect pieces. This is a lot of stuff that got heat last night from those downdrafts. We're going to use some between hand lines and roads and dozers to finish the rest of this up. Like I said, we got an air attack. We've been using fixed retardant. We've been using scoopers as well. We got Type 3 helicopters, Type 2 helicopters, and Type 1 helicopters supporting everybody on the ground. Got a lot of resource orders still in. We still got a lot of work to do, but we are definitely making progress on the south side and the east side, and finding areas in here on this north piece to keep it out of the corridor. You know, we had a lot of power lines, as you guys well know, in there. Some of the poles burned. The power companies were in there taking care of a lot of that. They really wanted to get that open, so we tried our hardest to get that below some of the lines to get it in there so we could open up that power again. But the crews did a great job in there and are continuing to do a great job, but they're just finding opportunities to go direct and indirect to button it up for you. That's it. We'll answer questions at the end.
Thank you, Jay. Now we will have an evacuation update with Peter Quittner, Emergency Manager for Utah County.
Good evening. Like she said, my name is Peter Quittner. I'm a sergeant with the Utah County Sheriff's Office. I'm also the Utah County's Emergency Manager, so I'm here representing both arms there. And I just want to say from the Sheriff's Office, on behalf of the Sheriff's Office, we want to let everybody know that the team that's working these incidents and all the people working these are doing a tremendous job. They're working long hours. I can say one thing, and that is these individuals, whether they live in the area or not, you would have no idea, because every decision they make, all the staffing decisions, all the meetings we go to, if you were a fly on the wall in those meetings, you would honestly believe they have a vested interest in every inch of this property. They're good people that make good decisions and really level heads. So I just want to say we appreciate the team here. I'm not a part of this incident management team. I'm a local here, and the way it works is the locals, we work through liaisons, and we work with the incident management teams because we have foundational knowledge of the area and some of the dynamics involved. So we really work together really well, and I appreciate they've accepted us in there. We have a lot of emergency managers throughout the community that have been there. They're not all assigned to Utah County. We have Carbon County Emergency Manager. We have Wasatch County Emergency Manager. We've got a lot of different people. We've got our state liaison, multiple state liaisons that have been working with this in the command post up there. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I just want to say that I appreciate all the effort that's put in so far. I'm just here to talk about some of the evacuations, and before I talk about the zones and everything, what it means, let me tell you how these decisions are made. I am not a fire behavioral specialist. I can't tell you what the fire is going to do tomorrow, today, but what we do is we get input from our partners. We know the people who have the knowledge and the information. We trust their judgment. We listen to what they have to say, and they tell us why things are happening, and they use a lot of science behind this and foundational experience. So we take their input, we listen to what they have to say, we take all the other factors into consideration. There's a lot of moving parts. It's very dynamic. So we get together and we talk about how we're going to plan for these evacuations. And they have a lot of fancy terms like trigger points and things, and you see some different colors up here. And what that means is the red zones up there are evacuation zones. They have been evacuated. And that's a lot of manpower. We've done it in conjunction with the local law enforcement, Forest Service, Highway Patrol. We've done it with volunteers. A lot of our search and rescue teams are out there. And it's manpower intensive to do some of these evacuations. And these volunteers are out there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes. But they are getting it done, and we appreciate their help. As I said, the red areas are evacuation areas. The yellow are what they determine a pre-evacuation area. So let me just tell you what that means. The pre-evacuation area means we're trying to make contact with everybody there, just to say there's a fire in the area. Please get your things together. You're not evacuated now, but if it comes to the point where we need to evacuate, please be ready to go. And that's what the pre-evacuation status means. The evacuation area is exactly what it sounds. We're asking you to take your belongings and evacuate the area. With that said, we do have some good news tonight that I'm gonna give to you right now. Based on the fire behavior and the tremendous work these crews have done up in this area on the north side of SR6, through all the recommendations of the team and with the Sheriff's Office, we listened to those, and with the Forest Service, we've all come to the decision that as of 8 p.m. tonight, Zone 13 is going to be designated a pre-evacuation area. So what that means is these residents up in the Juan Roads and anyone who has a cabin or a residence up in Zone 13 will be allowed to go back to their residence. However, that still will remain, Diamond Fork Road right here will remain closed to the public. We will be allowing those residents to have residence up here. They'll be able to access through Diamond Fork Road. There will be a deputy there on site to close the road. If you are a resident up there, just let them know who you are, and they will let you go to your resident. But there still is a Forest Service closure active for this Zone 10, so we're still trying to keep people out of that area. And what that Forest Service closure, it's actually 100 feet on each side of that road. So 100 feet north of that Diamond Fork Road is still remained closed. And everything else on the map, as you see, is current as far as the evacuation status. There's additional maps on the wall, so after this you can go up and get a good look. If there's an area you have a question with, the maps are up there, and there'll be several of us afterward to take questions. Thank you.
All right, now we will have an air quality update with Carolyn Kelly, our Air Resource Advisor assigned to the team.
As exciting as it would be for me if you were all here to talk about air quality, I'm assuming that's not the case, so I'm going to try to keep it pretty quick. So as you said, my name is Carolyn Kelly. I'm the Air Resource Advisor for the Coal Hollow Fire. My job here is to set up monitors, to collect data, and to put together outreach material for anybody who has any questions, comments, concerns, and also to be available in case you wanted to talk to me about those. Excellent. So the main thing that I've been working on, in case you haven't seen it, is the Daily Outlook, which, by the way, I have some hard copies afterwards if anybody wants one. And this is using the information that I'm getting from your monitors and what's going on with the fire and the smoke to tell you what you can expect for that day and how healthy or unhealthy air quality levels are going to be. Okay. And just in case you didn't know, this is based off the Air Quality Index, which has been put together by the EPA. It's a way to combine measurements of particulate matter to actions that you should take to take care of yourselves in a way that you can just look at this real quick and say, oh, it's moderate today. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm in good health. I don't have any underlying issues. I'm going to go outside anyways. And so just a general look at the country, this is where all the monitors are located. They're pretty heavy on the West Coast, and unfortunately, Utah is kind of lacking. But you do have about 11 out there, and most of them, as you can see, are up in the north, and that orange one right there is Spanish Fork. So to give you a look at what's been going on since August 4th, Spanish Fork has been seeing the highest levels of poor air quality in the area. So this part, I just wanted to show you some of the things that I'm looking at when I put together these reports. So here we have the IR report, I believe it's from today. So looking at where it's actively burning, which portion of the state might be affected more than the others. I also do a lot of modeling runs, looking at where the fire is, where the smoke might go, based on local meteorology, information I'm getting from our incident meteorologists, from our fire behavior analysts. Unfortunately, it is a model. All models are wrong. Some are better than others. And it's also going to be a wild card as to what the weather does that day, where lightning happens, where there's increases in fire activity, how the crazy erratic winds are going to be, where they're located, and all that sort of thing. And also looking at trajectories, this was for today. So these are all the smoke particles from roughly 500 meters down. trying to guesstimate where their tracks might take them. And they've even gone as far as Colorado. These ones seem to go a little bit north, and then there's a lot more going south. So you guys have gotten a little bit of a break with some of the northwest winds we've been having lately. And so just to give you an idea of where smoke is in the country, this is EPA's website, airnow.gov, showing the monitors, all the red ones, all the ones that are hazardous. There's a lot of fires going on in Canada, Washington State, all over, and we're just a big bowl of soup for smoke. And this is a picture, well, of our area looking at actual smoke. So you can see how you guys are not just being impacted by the Coal Hollow fire, but rather smoke from Washington, Oregon, Colorado, even smoke coming down from Canada, unfortunately. And this one is kind of hard to tell because there's a lot of cloud cover, but this is Utah. And you can still see a lot of the smoke pooling up by the Salt Lake City area. And so I just wanted to give you my information. I'm going to be around afterwards. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, absolutely get a hold of me. Anytime you can text me, call me, email me. I want to get any information out to you that I can. I work with the Department of Health. I work with the Department of Environmental Quality, the Forest Service, and all sorts of other smoke people who want to get any information out there that you guys need. So I'll be around after. Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. And now we will have agency comments from Chad Hudson, Deputy Forest Supervisor of the Uinta-Wasatch Cache.
Dan, there we go. Again, Chad Hudson, Deputy Forest Supervisor of the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest. You know, the funny thing about going last, I had a good hour worth of material, and these guys took about 15 minutes of it. So good for you. I only have a few minutes left. So. And then we'll jump into Q&A. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the team, your team, that's out there. So Dan talked a little bit about Type 1 team. It's essentially the best of the best. They're there to facilitate and organize a lot of resources. And we're lucky to have them. We are at what we call planning level 5, that was briefly mentioned. We have about 30,000 firefighters out right now through the nation. We are thin with resources, so we're very lucky to have this team here and the resources we have. But I'll tell you what, it wouldn't work. This team would not be able to be successful if it wasn't for the local resources. The city fire departments, the county sheriffs, county emergency management folks. You know, Peter said he's not part of the team. I would say he's an honorary member. It's essential. These guys are so important. The leadership and the coordination that they provide really does make it work. On up to the state patrol. The state has been involved all the way through. Unfortunately, I've been to a lot of large fires in Utah, and I seem to see all the area manager and Brian Cottom, the state forester, at all of them. So their participation, engagement, and partnership's been great. On up to our federal agencies, the BLM, the Park Services here. So there's a lot of different jurisdictions working for you, and that coordination is paying off. And I will say that it's great to have the local insight. It gives us a better insight into how this impacts you. We certainly acknowledge that and don't dismiss the impacts this fire is having when it comes to the commerce of Highway 6. When it comes to the power lines, we work a lot with UDOT, Rocky Mountain Power, Deseret, Union Pacific, the railroad. All those are critical for this community and the community over towards Price. And we don't take that lightly. We understand it affects the air quality, it affects the local economy and tourism. We see hunting season right around the corner, and we're doing what we can to minimize the impacts. You know, I had a hunter called our headquarters office in South Jordan, and it was a hunter that he comes from the Midwest every year, and he hunts up Sheep Creek. And he asked, should I come? And I heard about that, and I said, hey, call that guy back. Get him on the phone with some of our wildlife biologists or our rec staff. We want him to hunt in Utah County. we want him to buy a couple meals and buy a Sitka jacket or whatever it is. We understand this is important, and we're doing what we can to minimize the impacts and contain this in a timely manner. So I just wanted to make that clear that the team is not only providing essential expertise from across the nation, but it really is made up of the local knowledge and local coordination of your folks, and that really does make it work. So I'll leave it at that. I think we're going to go with Q&A. Is that correct? Next?
We have a few introductions to do first.
Okay.
And then we'll
All
do
right,
Q&A.
I'll sit down. Thank you.
So, as Dan mentioned, Frank Duarte, our liaison officer, did have a flat tire. He came in late, so I pleaded with Brian to do the introductions on Frank's behalf. So Brian Trick.
So what I have is by no means an exhaustive list, so there's going to be plenty of people that I forgot, and so for that I apologize. But I'd like to thank one more time Utah County, San Pete County, Carbon County, and Wasatch County Sheriff's Offices. They did an exceptional job of responding. And additionally, I'd like to give a special thank to the Utah County Fire folks. They have been absolutely irreplaceable as far as advice and help from the state side. So I'd also like to introduce Representative Mike McKell, if he's here, right there in the front. Senator Deidre Henderson. And did Representative Francis Gibson make it? There he is. Okay, and then finally, I'd like to introduce your mayor, the mayor of Spanish Fork, Steve Leifson. He would like a few minutes to talk with you. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you. I just want to tell these individuals how much we appreciate all they're doing here to help combat this fire and for the opportunity to get here tonight and give us an update. I'm sure everybody's wondering what's going on, and we are likewise, and so we appreciate the update, and I want to thank everyone that's associated with this fire and tell them that you've got our prayers and blessings with you, and hopefully that everything will work out. We can get this thing taken care of. Just one comment I want to make. We're talking about the air quality we have here in our city. We have 4 air quality monitors throughout the city, and we monitor those constantly to tell whether we should continue on with some of our programs that we have that are outdoor. We monitor them between 100 and 200. Anytime it gets over 200, we cancel any program that we have running in the city. And as citizens, you can go to purpleair.com. You can monitor that self. If there's anything you see, anytime you feel that the air's not good for you to be outside, please don't go outside. But it's interesting how we watch that. We've kind of been proactive to put those monitors up. We did that a few weeks ago before this even started, and just to watch our quality, and so they've come in handy. But as mayor, I want to tell how much we appreciate each one of you, the citizens, for all you do, and all these individuals are working here hard to get this fire out, so thank you.
Okay, so now it's time for questions and answers. How we typically like to do this is let's set about 20 minutes for questions as the group. If you have additional questions, we can evaluate how we're doing at that point. We do have the maps again on the wall if you would prefer to do the face-to-face. So Paul, I'm going to have you, if you would, grab a microphone. We are streaming this live on Facebook. I apologize, I didn't mention that before. We may have some questions that come through on Facebook, and we'll address those as well as they come up. So are there any questions for the group? Yes.
So on behalf of everyone here, again, we reiterate how much we appreciate the teams, and if you could filter that information down to the guys that are working out there, we really appreciate it. I do have 3 questions. The first question is, a week ago, Wednesday, I believe, we had a big run on the fire, about 10,000 acres. I'm curious if you could explain what caused that and if there's a chance of that happening again. The second question is, we're saying that it's 2% contained, which seems really small to me, not knowing fires or working with fires. So if you could kind of explain where that containment number comes from. And then we talked about the fuel. I'm a homeowner by Schofield Reservoir, and I have a lot of sagebrush around my home. And I'm thinking, well, sagebrush isn't a major issue as far as fuel. So if you could kind of address that, is there things we need to do to protect our home? So those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, so question number 1, the big run. So we got ordered in, so I wasn't in the area, so feel free for some of the local guys to speak up, but typically a cold front would have come in, and you can see the direction that it come, a downburst from a thunderstorm that was parked, around the fire. Just a real big, everything lined up between the drainages and the ridges, the wind, the downburst from that, and then the dry fuels. That's typically when you get those big runs, everything kind of lines up in with the wind, the weather, the terrain, the fuels. That's why you get such a big growth day. Question number 2 was containment. So it is going to rise tomorrow. The guys put a little more black on the line. So what the crews are doing on the ground, obviously direct, indirect. There's a lot of area that's been put in. There's a lot of line that's been put in. But we like to work it. We like to mop it up. We like to get a little bit of a buffer before we say this particular area is contained. So there's contained and control. This fire probably won't be controlled, probably till the snow flies, but contained, we'll work on that as we go. Containment on this will rise, as the team is here. The troops on the ground are doing a great job, and definitely have some containment that will be shown on the map. Plus, it'll be published. She'll get it out on a news release in the next day or 2. Starting tomorrow, I think they raised it tonight at the last meeting I was at. So as far as the fuels around your house, right now we're in 90th, 97th percentile fuels, which is really dry. Setting records on some of the stations around the area. Fire-wise communities, there's lots of literature out there. Getting with your state forester, getting with the Forest Service, the BLM, even your local fire departments can help you with specs on cutting the fuels back away from your properties to get that defensible space, so we don't put the boots on the ground in danger trying to protect the values that are out there. There's certain depths and tree spacings and types of trees to plant. There's all kinds of literature out there. Stop at one of those local offices to get some of that would be the best recommendation.
And just one addition, I heard you say sagebrush around your house. Sagebrush burns just fine. So it's, you need to, Jay mentioned Firewise and things like that, so please protect around your house and everybody else that might have a cabin at Schofield or anywhere else. Thanks.
I am a citizen of Spanish Fork, and we appreciate all the work that you gentlemen and ladies do. Is there things that we can do to come up on the back line or behind all of you guys and help out, volunteer, do grunt work, fetch water, get food? shovel something, whatever. I'm not a firefighter. I have no idea what these terms mean.
If you could have come up last night and turned the wind off, we'd appreciate it, but I haven't met anybody yet that can do that.
Okay.
So continuing on with my discussion earlier about incident management teams, it is not unusual, certainly not going to happen in Utah County, but it is not unusual by any means for us to pull into a place and within 2 days double, triple, or more the population of the county we're in. So over time, it's a requirement for us to be self-sufficient. You know, if there's just one little store with, 2 heads of lettuce and that sort of thing, we can overrun a place very quickly and become, instead of help, we become pests. And so that's why we become self-sufficient. And so as hard as it is, the best answer I can give you is actually we don't need anything right now, although we really appreciate, and it's not unusual, we get asked that question all the time, but that's why our answer's no. What we do usually point you towards, and I'm sure Utah can, well, I know they do, I used to live in Provo, so while this is going on and you feel that urge, if you could do something like donate to a homeless shelter or give to the food bank or provide support to your community, we take that as a lot of help.
You don't want me up there.
You know, there's several ways to read between the lines, but
I'll just add something really quickly. Fire is a short-term impact, but can have a long-term benefit for a lot of things. If you're a hunter, you know that the land rehabs and wildlife really come in and like those old fire-burned areas. But together with fire, I mentioned permittees earlier. We recognize that this is a heavy impact on them, probably will be for the next 3 to 4 years. So what I would ask is, as you recreate on the forest, if you see a few more cows or a few more sheep in one particular area or another, just to have a little bit of patience with that. We work very hard to lessen that impact on them as much as we can, while at the same time letting the land rehabilitate to the best that it can.
We're a cabin owner in Schofield Mountain Homes. I wonder if you would point that out on the map, because I don't know where it is. And tell me the status there, what it looks like as far as being able to use the cabin in the next few weeks. I also have a son that likes to hunt. So I'm wondering, in relation to the fire, how bad is it for the cabin owners in Schofield Mountain Homes? Point it out on the map. That's not shown on this map.
It's just off of this map. Schofield Reservoir will sit down in this area here. And so Schofield Homes is to the north and the northwest and the west of. Yeah, and that's why you couldn't find it. Apologize for that. Down here and in very good condition.
So what's the status with the homeowners up there? All those cabins up the west?
We're just working on the status of getting back into them. Is that the question? Yeah, so as we gain containment, we'll address that with the county sheriff and the agency administrators that we work for, and we will give a recommendation as we get more of that line contained. They had mentioned the 2%. We're continuing to work that whole fire, but that southeast corner is looking really well. So we will make a recommendation to to the sheriffs and the agency administrators when we think it's safe for people to go in there. I can't give you a date right now, but the troops on the ground are doing a great job, and it's not going to be real long, in my opinion.
We're a homeowner in Schofield as well. When we got out there for the pre-evacuation, we noticed different color ribbons. Is there a significance to the color that was on the property?
Some of those ribbons were there because we had multiple crews. As I mentioned earlier, we had volunteers, we had law enforcement agencies, we had a lot of different agencies coming together to work together to do those evacuations, and they were going by the ribbons they currently had in their possession. So the color of the ribbons aren't as important as the fact that that's markings for us to know that we had checked those areas and made contacts with those residents.
Hi there, JB Pratt. I live here in Mapleton, so thank you all for your efforts. I have 3 questions as well. First of all, last week everybody in this room received an emergency evacuation text message, and there was a phone number provided and a website, both of which tipped over in the first 2 minutes and weren't back up for hours. So I wondered, for future events, are those being fixed so that that doesn't happen again? The second question I have is on air quality. So thank you, Mayor of Spanish Fork, for installing those. The readings here at this high school, right now they're the best they've been, but throughout the last week they've been reading in the 300s and 400s. So as a school, should they be taking other precautions with school starting on Tuesday for both school and sports events with numbers in the 300s and 400s? And finally, for many of us who live right up on the bench, should we be either concerned about the fire coming up over the hill or reducing fuel load on our own properties?
Well, I can answer that first question about the notification that did go out. That was sent out to a larger area than intended, and that was designed to go to a very small area within the evacuated areas up there. We are human, we do make mistakes sometimes. If it was designed to go out to as large of an audience as it did, we would have also put those resources in place to be able to handle that type of a call volume. So as far as what's being done, we have looked at that issue. We've looked at the piece of software that was used. We talked about maybe some of the things that happened that caused that. We have put some additional training in place already since that's happened. We are also meeting with our community partners that use that particular system and to discuss how we can keep that from happening in the future and how we can best utilize that. Just so you're aware, as far as the evacuations, we really care about everybody out there. We go door to door with law enforcement, we go door to door with volunteers, we do everything we can to make sure we reach everyone in that area. We do our absolute best. And in that particular case, we had this technology available to us that we really wanted to use just to make sure we cover and do our due diligence to make sure we get the word out to everybody we can in that area.
Yep, I'll take the second one. So the thing with the purple air sensors is that they're a personal monitor, so it's more of a citizen science thing. So they're not regulated the same way that the federal monitors are. That being said, they're created in California, so they're not necessarily built for every environment that's going to be utilizing them. Along with that, it's going to depend on where you place them. So if you put it outside your house, say near your garage, and you're running your car, it's going to count what's coming out of your car. And I don't know where these ones are located, but generally speaking, if you are getting higher readings at a school, it's a good idea to either move things inside or maybe postpone them. I can't say anything for sure because it's not something that's regulated. I know the state of Washington Department of Health has some guidelines for activities and air quality related to school. I'm not sure that Utah has. I haven't seen anything, but that's certainly information that I could pass along to you or anybody else who's interested.
Yeah, my name is Eldon Neves. We have an association. I'm the president of the association that has 468 cattle on that particular area where the fire is. 2 days before anything was done on the fire, we saw a puff of smoke, talked to people. For 2 days, nobody did anything. They just sat on that. And I'm not sure why that response never happened. We informed people, 2 days, just sat on it. We started to move our cattle out of Mill Fork. The last 10 days we've been spending 16-hour days. Just today we hauled about 300 head of cattle out of there at the bottom of the birches. Also, about 4 days ago, I was up on top of Dairy Fork. We were gathering cattle, and fire was right in the bottom there. I had crews there, and we stomped some of the fire out. The crews were just kind of up there monitoring that. And it just upset me that there was not more being done physically on the ground to simply 200 yards down from Dairy Fork Road, get that fire out. We looked over on top of Cold Hollow, that's where it started. And some smoke was coming up from there. And also nothing happened. I know the typical answer is the reason we didn't do that because our resources are stressed. And you're here today to do PR, and I understand that. But I really wasn't thrilled with the way when we talked to people about that coming down on Cold Hollow again. Right now it's coming down, it's almost on Lake Fork Road. They're doing some work on that to prevent them from going over. But just a little teeny bit would have stopped that whole country. If that goes, I know that country because that's what we write all the time. If that goes across that Lake Fork Road, it's going to go clear over to Indianola because there's nothing to stop it. And that's old timber that's beetle killed and so forth. And there's no way to get into that. So I would suggest that, boy, if there's any way to deal with the cattlemen, we know exactly what's going on that. And we can tell you, if we tell you there's a little puff of smoke, it'd be good to get at least a crew there or drop some water on that. Because if we had done that, I have a firm conviction that we'd have stopped all these millions of dollars and all these problems that we're talking about right now. Thank you.
So once again, I wasn't here during the initial attack. I can assure you though, well, there's a lot of resources around that we bring in, helicopters with Helitack crews, there's engines. I'm not sure the number of starts that were in there, or the detection method, or the number of fires that were through this whole mountain range. It's been busy for lots of people, and I'm sure the local resources as well. Kyle might be able to answer that better. But as far as the troops out there right now, you got 25,000 acres of edge. You've seen some pretty impressive columns. You're in some pretty dangerous country. We have policies and procedures we follow to keep the boys and girls on the ground safe. They mentioned of taking a moment of silence for one of the people that died, earlier in the week in California. We take it very serious of where we put our firefighters and the explosive conditions that are here with the 90th, 90 percentile fuels, the weather that you guys have been experiencing here. We try to have good safety zones. We try to have good anchor points. I realize that you are out and about gathering cows, and very few people get to do that, that close to a fire. And you might see it from a different perspective. I respect that. But as a manager taking care of those boys and girls on the ground, I do not want to get anybody in a bad spot. And that's why we evaluate it. We base all our actions on current and expected fire behavior. And it's just rough out there. So I'll let Kyle talk about, some of the initial attack stuff.
Gamble oaks are not really tall enough to hurt anybody. But anyway, helped us as much as we could to get the count up.
I appreciate that, thank you. A little bit more on the initial attack. I do have after-action reviews with our firefighters, and so I will be asking those questions as far as initial attack. I know right there around August 4th, our engine there in San Pete was up on the Crooked Creek fire, back in a deep canyon back in that country. Our hand crew module was on a fire down on the Fish Lake, and our Price engine was on the Trail Mountain fire, doing some protection around a miners' memorial in that country. So as far as what I've been told is August 4th is when they received the call anyway and responded to that. But I will follow up and follow up on those details. When they did get there, it was intense enough that as they surrounded it, 2 of our firefighters got pushed down and actually exited out the canyon down into Lake Fork. The other group trying to hit it from the other angle. It was just a precarious situation where they had to make kind of an exit quickly and get their equipment out of there. And so I guess where I'm going with that is by the time when they were there, it was aggressive enough that it really raised a lot of concerns for me and safety issues, and that obviously triggered ordering up a team for assistance.
My question is more, I guess, for the city and the air quality. My concern is for some of the youth in the community that have been working outdoors at the pool, where it has remained open during the pool season when we've had some of the worst air that we have seen. And I know that some of the other communities that have had even better air than we have remained open during the good days, and they've closed their pools during some of the poor air days. What are we doing to help our youth in the community remain healthy?
Thank you. That's a great question. I'm Seth Perrins. I'm the city manager for Spanish Fork. We've been watching, as we said, the air quality. This week we had a lot of swimming lessons. Last week as they ended, we don't have any morning swimming lessons. If you know the air in the area, of course, the air is worst in town in the morning. And so we remain vigilant of that. We don't have any swimming lessons at the pool right now in the morning, like I said. And so but as we watch it, if the air quality continues high, we'll pull them away. As stated, it's not regulated. We don't have great limits, and we don't have great understandings of everything either. We follow the guidelines that are given in those recommendations on the AQI. And we are, like I said, monitoring it. If it goes higher, and of course they're fluid, we'll send them home or we'll shut it down. We'll shut it down and we'll send them home.
But let me ask a question though. Swim lessons are over, but the pool in Spanish Fork is actually open really early for other things.
Sure.
I have a daughter that lifeguards down there.
Okay.
And she worked the 5 o'clock a.m. shift on Monday morning. And I went by the pool a couple of hours into her shift to switch cars. And most of the lifeguards walking around were wearing masks because the air is so hazy and so bad, but the pool is still open. That is a concern. Yeah, swim lessons are over, but she works 4:50 in the morning to noon shifts out in that air. They don't really have the option to not show up to work and to stay inside. That is a concern for our kids that are still growing and have developing lungs, and
So thank you, I appreciate that. If you ever have a concern about sending your child to work in that condition, don't hesitate, don't send them. We would never hold that against your child for not showing up. And if we need to make a better decision, then we certainly can do that. We should do that. So please never hesitate. And to the question about schools, if you feel like your child can't or shouldn't be there, please don't send them. And we apologize for that. So if we need to make an adjustment there, we can. I will chat with the pool managers that are there early in the morning.
Will that be I guess that's another concern I have, not only as a parent, but as an educator in the school district. As school does start next week, will that how will that affect the kids as we turn on the air in the swamp coolers, because the majority of, at least a lot of the elementary schools are still on swamp coolers, and as we're bringing in a lot of that air into the schools, and we do have a lot of students with those sensitivities, how is that going to affect a lot of our students? I know we will keep them in for inside recess, but again, we're still bringing in a lot of that air at this point in time.
I'm not with the school, so I can't answer that question, sorry. But Lana can come up and do that. You want to let me answer? You sure you want me to do that? I'm just kidding, Lana.
Yeah, we will also follow the guidelines. As you know, we canceled football scrimmage games, and we will continue to do that. We are monitoring it very, very closely. So we will continue to get that information out to our administrators. So thank you for your concern.
Okay, we've gone about 25 minutes of the 20 minutes that I wanted to allot for questions as a group. Let's take two more, and then again, we will still stay here. We do have the maps on the walls, and we are more than happy to continue to answer questions one-on-one.
Okay, for those of us who were not on the system, apparently, to get the evacuation notice last week, as my daughter was heading to Logan to get away from everything, she mentions, oh, we're evacuating. We want to get away from this. And I go, what evacuation notice? I got a 443 number from Maryland, so I got nothing. So if you can put on the incident site, I called the incident site and said, how do I get on a list so I get these messages? So if you could put that contact, then I will be able to register my telephone number so that I get evacuation notice, number one. Okay, number two, how much of this land belongs to the federal government? How much, what's the percentage of land that belongs to the federal government in this? The reason I'm asking that question is, what is being done by the federal government to aid the fire in this section? And number two, how much are they contributing in manpower and in money to help abate this situation, since we don't have enough firefighters for that area?
Okay, I can address your first question, and let me just explain why you might not have gotten that notification. In Utah County, we have a system. It's an emergency notification system. The company we use is called Everbridge. We do have an opt-in portal for the community to use, and I would encourage, if you are wanting to get your information on the system so you can be notified in the event of an emergency, it's one website no matter what city you live in the county. It's alerts.utahcounty.gov. Again, that's alerts.utahcounty.gov. You can sign up for those notifications. However, in this particular incident, this was a different technology. And this technology, without getting too technical, it doesn't go by a database that we had. This particular system went off of cell towers and what cell phones are within range of certain cell towers. So we had already done certain types of notifications. This notification system I just spoke about, we didn't have any of those registered users in that area, or we would have used that system. So we were trying to hit all the cell phone towers, all the people visiting, all the people we don't have in our system, and so just pinging off the cell towers in those general areas. So, and then without getting too technical, how the cell towers work, if a cell phone is outside of the county or outside of a particular area, but that cell phone still is pinging from that tower and getting its signal from that tower, you can get those messages. It's not a perfect system. We try, that's why we try all the traditional methods to notify everybody. But in this particular case, this technology is not perfect. It's not, and we hope it is perfect, but it's not. So there are instances where in the same resident, you'll have somebody upstairs, somebody downstairs, one person gets it, one person doesn't. It's just how the system works off the cell towers. It is not our main system that we use. So I hope I shed some light on that.
Peter Scott Finlayson from Springville Police Department and Public Safety Director. Also, just a note for Springville and Mapleton residents, you need to go to the Springville and Mapleton website to sign up for the Citizen Alert System, which is the one that you were talking about first, which works for the rest of the county. But those citizens in Springville and Mapleton need to use the Springville and Mapleton websites to sign up for alerts in Springville and Mapleton.
Yeah, what we've done, there's actually links to your particular sites from that alerts.utahcounty.gov. So if they go to that website, it does take you to your particular system you're speaking of.
There was a second part to that, and I'd be happy to address that. So you asked about percentage of federal versus state. I don't know the actual percentage, but I will say for every large fire, we sit down, the federal agencies sit down with the state, and we work out an agreement. Sometimes it's based on percentage of acreage. Other times, depending on aircraft and where their emphasis area is, whether it's private or federal, we might tweak that. But we have a very good working relationship with the state. These are relatively easy agreements because we have such a good working agreement or working relationship. And this fire in particular, based on the percentage of acreage, the federal government will be contributing quite a bit. We have, all agencies are contributing, and we have an agreement where, regardless of where the fire is, the closest unit will respond. So again, we have, we work together. There is no, it's a pretty healthy working relationship, and there is no real debate or argument about who does what. We work together as one unified force.
Contrary to public opinion, not everybody's liked on Facebook and followed on Twitter. So who do we contact if we want to help with evacuations or if we need help with evacuations?
We keep in close communication with our dispatch centers. If there's an emergency, I would recommend you to dial 911. If it's not an emergency situation, there are non-emergency dispatch numbers that you can get a hold of that particular center, and they can send the appropriate resources or answer any questions you have. I received several phone calls today about donations and things like that, and we route those to the appropriate location. So in your particular case, if there's something you have a desire to assist with or help with, I would recommend calling your local dispatch center, and they can get that information to who could best make that decision.
Okay, thank you very much for attending this evening.